Hi everyone. Today we will look at how we can observe AWS Lambda functions with Datadog. As part of this video, we will discuss a quick discussion related to AWS Lambda, what are the key metrics and things which we should observe, and then we'll follow it up with the practical implementation. Here I am making assumption that you are already familiar with AWS Lambda. If not, there are a lot of materials available. You can get yourself up to date very quickly. So just to start, there are a couple of ways we can enable observability for AWS Lambda. One of the first thing is your AWS Lambda functions, you want to enable metrics, logs and traces. That is pretty much enabling observability for the piece of code which you have written. You want to understand what that code is actually doing. You want to understand the, the potential bottlenecks, the latency, errors, and in case of any issue, you should be able to have a way to go through and understand the flow and troubleshoot and identify the root cause. We pretty much call this process instrumenting AWS Lambda to enable observability. Second aspect of is you also want to understand Lambda is a serverless service provided by AWS. There are quite a lot of metrics which are useful that will provide you overview of your serverless usage, especially the AWS Lambda serverless usage in AWS state, and that will help you to kind of have an overall view of what's happening. So Datadog is providing both capabilities. So now let's look at how you can achieve or enable these capabilities. The easiest, there are a couple of ways. Today what we're going to discuss is how we can integrate Datadog Lambda extension with Lambda so that you can push these metrics, logs and traces into Datadog. So this is using Lambda key feature called layered, which we will add the Datadog Lambda extension as a layer. So runtime, it can get executed and it can do the needful. So when you do this, what you can achieve? So there are quite a few key Lambda metrics which you need to monitor. And number one, it's functional error rate. Obviously, this indicates whether your function is working fine, and higher percentage of error means you had to figure out the reason. You had to take action. And call starts are also very important. That is kind of like provide you a view of how is overall performance, because call start are kind of like heavily correlated with latency, and it can lead into some inconsistency performance and degrading user experiences as well. So call start mainly look at what's the time a function was taken to initialize. Then duration, obviously you will have to look at that time taken to execute that Lambda function. Towards its benefit, it's directly correlated with end user customer experience, and also Lambda is getting built based on the compute time, so that is important for us to measure. And then a couple of other key metrics are concurrent execution. So AWS imposes some concurrent limits on our Lambda in each account. So we want to understand how many concurrent hits happening, and also whether there are any throttles happen. So whenever we are hitting the concurrent the thresholds, AWS itself will handle that, and those requests will get throttled. So we want to understand how many throttles have happened, because that would have indirectly resulted in not indirectly but directly resulted in bad end user experiences. And date letter errors are also important. So here we are able to kind of like understand the fail messages and whether they are how they have handled. And iterator age, it's again one of the key indicator because it allows us to identify the delay between certain record is added and when it is processed by AWS Lambda. So this helps us to understand some processing bottlenecks, and then we should be able to look at things and kind of like do improvements to improve overall performance. And finally, there are a few other metrics: invocation count, success count, the maximum duration, minimum duration. Those are again will help you and provide you a overall view. So these are some of the collection of the metrics which we should enable or we should get ourselves access to. So that will allow us to kind of be on top of AWS Lambda, on top of your functions, and on top of the code which is being executed. So now let's look at and let's try to go through in AWS console and let's try to enable observability for one of the functions. For this video, I created a simple Slack application which has the capability of sending a message into a Slack channel. So basically let me just so it's a Python application. It's a Python application which will just integrate with Slack and then send a message. So if I just do a quick test, okay, message is sent successfully. So if I go to Slack, yes, Datadog Lambda Observability. So the application is working fine. Let's try to instrument this application and check whether how we can enable the comprehensive observability in this area. So I'm back at my Datadog. So it's a brand new account. So let me go to serverless. So you can see at the moment under AWS, I'm able to see a couple of them. Like step functions, Fargate, and serverless. So let me just instrument my own application. So I can click here, which will take me to the steps. Let's just wait. And now what you have to do is it's a kind of like a workflow where I'll just have to install Datadog CLI and then start instrumenting my app. So let me just do that. Let me just quickly copy this. Here I have logged into AWS Cloud Shell, probably as a best practices. Let me do, and then let me just install Datadog CLI. It will take a bit of time. So what we are trying to do is we'll instrument our Lambda function from here in Cloud Shell. So once we configure the Datadog CLI, we'll be able to do that easily using the CLI commands. So this will go on. It will usually take 1 or 2 minutes. Let me probably pause this video and I'll come back when this is done. Yes, so it has completed successfully. So now let's try to go back. So if I go back to my Datadog found, so it gives me these steps. How should I do that? There are a couple of options I can, while doing this instrumentation, I can enable threat monitoring to detect attackers targeting my application. I'm also able to enable profiling to analyze performance of your function, basically profiling. So at the moment I'll just not go for that. Let's just simply try to go and instrument the application. So now we are again back at Cloud Shell. Let me trigger the command. So it's asking us which AWS region. So I'm using US East 1, and the Datadog instance we are using, it's US 5. I do it. Let me just three, this 5. So let me enter. So I'm going to use plain text for my API key. So for the trial we can do that. We should not, but if even it is for production, we have to look at encrypting the key. It's asking for my API key. I'm back again at AWS from Datadog console. So I just have to get that API key. So let's search for API keys. I can double check this. Let me copy the API key so I can go back at Cloud Shell again. So let me give this API key. So what's that Lambda function I'm going to use? So let me just trying to find out that Lambda function. Slack test. Little bit of, okay, we have close to there. Yes. For some reason the selection hasn't happened. Okay, yeah, it has got enter value for environment. So let's say it's a test. It's a test environment. DD service. Let's say Slack service, and for the DD version, let's say V1. I think we are almost there. It's asking to apply. Things looking good. So we have kind of applied it. Yeah. So the changes are applied now. So I can go back to AWS Lambda page. Let me go back. Let me go to functions again. Select Lambda test. And now if you see, you are able to see there are layers. If I click layers, I can see there are two layers. One is Datadog Python, and then we have the Datadog, the extension. So now it's all good. So what we can do now is, let me just generate a couple of test runs. Hopefully messages are coming in. Let me do another one. another one, and then probably we will go back to our Datadog console and see what's happening. So I'm at my Datadog console. First, let me go to serverless because we have just done instrumentation. We want to check whether anything it's so now what we'll do is we'll go to APM because Lambda instrumentation it will reflect as a service. So let's go to the service catalog and let's see whether it's coming up. At the moment nothing is coming up, so it will take a little bit of time. Let me pause my video and then we'll wait for it to come. Okay, so now you are able to see Slack service is start appearing in our APM section. So what I have done is I went to APM service catalog, so I can see this as a service. So one thing we can do is I can click the service page. It will kind of like show me about high level details related to this particular functions, about the invocations, the errors and latency. It's taking around like 159 milliseconds, and dependency, you can see it has a dependency, and then resources and almost other services. So it has a lot of details which is providing, and I'm able to see the traces as well. So in order to see the more better view of traces, I can go to Explorer and let me just yes, the traces are appearing. So if I click one of these traces, able to see the initial call, and then this is just simple invocation of Slack API. So those details are there with the amount of time being taken. So if I click something else, more granular level details also visible, but it's again within the same code sections. So this is kind of way uh, how you can instrument AWS Lambda functions. So here what we are able to do is we are able to successfully implement the Lambda function, and now I'm able to see the related metrics. Okay, the metric details might take a little bit of time, and other details are coming up as well. So next what we will do is we'll try to go to dashboards and then go to dashboard list, and here probably I can check whether I can see AWS Lambda dashboard. It's not appearing. So now what I'll do is I'll try to do a integration with my AWS account so I can get high level details related to Lambda. So let me do one thing. Let me go to AWS. Let me try to do the integration here. I will select the API key, and it's asking me to go for cloud formation. So let me just go back to my from my AWS console. Let me just paste that URL I got from here. I can see it's a cloud formation template. We have the stack names and other things. So let me go back. Let me try to think all the details are fine. Let's create that. Okay, yes. Okay, will I have to acknowledge, and then from here I will create the stack. The stack creation work is in progress. We'll have just to wait a little bit until this integration is happening. Okay, so my cloud formation has completed, so it's all done. So what I can do now is I can go to Datadog and then I can see how it's reflecting. So I'm back at my Datadog console and let me go to integration. From integration, let's go to AWS. And what I'll do is I'll just want to double check all my integrations and just check whether what is required. So I can come here, then I can check whether, so you have the general, metric, logs, resources, X-ray. So you can come to metric collection. What I'll do is I'll disable all. So I don't need everything at the moment. Then I'll check for Lambda, enable it. Okay. So now what I can do is I can go to dashboard list, can check whether Lambda is appearing. So we have a couple of dashboards, the standard dashboard and the enhanced metric. So once we integrate our AWS Lambda function with Datadog, you will see the metrics is enhanced. So let us go here. Okay, so here it's working. You can see couple of invocations. My Slack test is appearing, so I can see the invocation. So there were around 3 invocations. I can see because it was a kind of like after some time I executed, there was one call start and the execution time, the slowest function. There are no errors, and then the memory. So mainly Datadog, it's looking at the invocations and it can split it based on function invocation functions per hour, so different ways. And then it's looking at the call start and the provision concurrency, call start by function, provision concurrent execution by functions, provision concurrency utilization by function. So those are the couple of varied metrics which you can get. And then you have the execution time. You can get the max execution time, timeouts, all those things. Errors at different levels, like overall, at functional level, logs and throttle invocations you can get. And then you will able to see the memory related things as well. If you want to identify what are the available metrics, so easily what you can do is you can go to, you can search for metric summary. From here you can search, so because we are using AWS Lambda, so you can check for AWS Lambda, and then so over 25 metrics are available. You can see the build duration, CPU, the duration, initial duration, invocation, max memory, post runtime duration. So there are many things which you can kind of like uh, many metrics which you can use to observe this application. Now let me do one thing. Let me go back to that Lambda code, and because I'm not creating any log, I'm not able to troubleshoot or look at how the logs are coming into the Datadog. So what I'll do is let me just do a quick and dirty update of the code, Lambda code, and then deployed it. Looks like it's deployed successfully. Let me just add a message saying text Datadog Lambda Observability. Say log it, deploy it again. It will take a couple of seconds to get it done. So once it's deployed, so let me test it. Yes, looks fine. Yeah, if I go to my Slack channel, I can see the new messages visible. So now what I can do is I can go back to my, yeah, so everything is good. So let us go back to our Datadog console again and check whether logs are visible. So I'm back at my console and let me go to logs. If I go to log section, you can search and then you can see like it has not. Let me go back to my APM and just check whether anything is visible. You can see some things happening. Let me just click. You can see the traces and just let us double check whether logs are appearing here. Looks like it's not appearing yet. Probably we'll do a couple of testing invocation. Let me do a couple of tests in this area. Okay, so hopefully this should generate some traffic and then I can go back again to my Datadog console and check. So what I'll do is I'll just first go into logs, because that's generally the place where we will start checking things. Last 15 minutes, yes, I can see things appearing and it's related to Slack service. So here I can see it's coming from AWS Lambda. So the logs are appearing. So let me go back again to my phrases. I went to APM, from APM to explore the traces. I can see traces. Let me just click one. Yeah, things are appearing, and yes, if I go back now, I can see the logs, the related logs are visible. So I know this is a very simple example. Logs might not be very detailed, but in a real world application, we are able to create some meaningful logs, so that will reflect here. Okay, some reason my metrics are still not loading, but overall other things are available. I can still go back again to serverless page. And that should allow me to have a good view of this Lambda function. Okay, I can see things are loading. Let us give a minute. Yes, my Slack test. I can see the summary. I can see the functional detail, no issues. And so if I come to functions, there are options like I can see traces. I can directly go from here, the logs and all of those things. So today what we have done is we look at AWS Lambda and we look at what are the key metrics which you want to use to observe AWS Lambda. And then we kind of like look at how to instrument AWS Lambda with Datadog extension to enable this observability, which is pretty much trying to get the metrics, logs, and traces. So thank you for spending this time. I hope this find useful. If you have any question, you can put a quick comment. I will pick it up. Thanks everyone. Thanks for watching.